Welcome into the Dental Profits Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Crabtree, and today I'm going to shock you. Education does not equal growth. Hi, folks. I'm Sean Crabtree.
And I'm Cameron Bailey.
We don't want to change the way you do business.
We want to change the way you're thinking about your business.
We want you to have better results, happier clients, and make more money.
Let's get it started.
Welcome into the Dental Profits Podcast series. I am your host, Sean Crabtree. As you know, this show comes to you every single week with ways for you to have happier clients, better results, make more money, and enjoy the ride. Today we're talking about one of my biggest pet peeves, and probably the reason it's my biggest pet peeve is because it's something that I had to overcome myself. The concept that education does not equal growth. Education does not equal growth. Now, if you're listening to this, you may go theoretically, okay, that makes sense. But everything I've been taught is education is the most important thing. Education is the most important thing. I want to show you 2 or 3 reasons why education is not the most important thing. It's not the most important thing with your patients, and it's not the most important thing when it comes to practice growth for you. What are we really talking about here when we say education doesn't equal growth? Well, here's the thing that I have heard probably 2,000 times, Mr. Producer, over the last 21 plus years. That's a lot of times. Here's the thing that we hear. We're doing pretty well. There's just a couple of things that we need to learn, like treatment acceptance. Sean, if you could just tell us how that we need to create value, hey, we'd be great, okay? It doesn't work. It does not work. And I'm talking about, listen, this is a tough one for me. If you're driving down the road and you're hearing this, you're going, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard. I have to tell you, I used to think that was the issue too. I used to think that if I just understood how, people who are successful must know something that I don't know. There's the first premise that this concept is based on, and it's totally false. Let me say that again. I used to believe that there was this premise out there, and everything I did came from this belief, that people who are successful, they know something that I don't know. They know how to do something that I don't know how to do. You know what? It's just not the case. It is just not the case. Maybe not you, but there are plenty of practices out there and dentists who think, if I just knew how, if my team just knew how to create value, we'd be great. Okay? That is not true. And again, the reason we're talking about this is because this is a myth that I want to help you bust. It took me a while to get through this, to learn that it's just not the case. The issue is much, much deeper than that. Let's talk about it from the number one perspective. When you are implementing some sort of growth strategy, whether it's treatment acceptance or whether it's whatever it is that you're trying to learn. I mean, gosh, you could go back over the course of 20 years, the straight 6 scheduling method or the 10-minute crown prep or like whatever, right? If you are implementing something new, you got to understand that how to do it is a very small piece. The bigger piece of it is this. The people on your team have been behaving the way they do because there are legacies that are instilled in your practice. There's legacy thinking. There are legacy behaviors. There are legacy beliefs. There are comfort zones to anything new that can be the barriers. These are all the issues. These are the barriers to implementation of a new strategy. How to do it? It's super quick and it's meaningless almost. How to do it is just the steps. The things that are going to prevent it from being implemented, the barriers to the implementation of the new steps, are the legacy behaviors, the legacy thoughts, the legacy beliefs, comfort zones, my resistance to doing anything new, and all of the thought processes that need to go with that. These are the challenges to implementing a new strategy. How to do it? You could learn that in a day or 2, depending on what the subject matter is. But doing it involves much, much more than simply being educated on how to do it. The other point that I would make is this. those things I just mentioned, legacy behaviors, legacy beliefs, comfort zones, I mean, all of these things are cultural things. If you take your team to the midwinter or to one of our seminars or to somebody else's seminar, and somebody there is, educating on a new systematic approach, and you walk away going, sweet, I got it. We're going to roll out like we've been to this seminar, man. We are fired up. And you come back and you already know what happens. That newness that you just learned lasts about 7 days, maybe 10. And then all of a sudden, the comfort zones, the legacy behaviors, the legacy thoughts, the legacy beliefs take over. And it goes away, right? That you've seen it happen already. It doesn't matter how long you've been in business or in practice, you've seen that happen already. So the second point is this. If you want to implement something new, you've got to put a focus on the cultural things that are going to have that new thing be implemented. You've got to put a focus on how the culture communicates. You got to put a focus on things like accountability. You got to put a focus on things like, direct communication. You got to put a focus on being aware of comfort zones, supporting one another through those comfort zone challenges. You've got to put a focus at the end of the day of making sure that the culture is what's driving this. If you try to implement something new in the current culture, it doesn't work. And you've got history on some level that already proves to you that what I'm telling you is absolutely the truth. So when it comes to implementing growth, you got to throw out education and realize that's a very small part of it. It's necessary. It's not the most important thing. It's a very small part of it. The cultural aspects, overcoming past behaviors, past thinking, past beliefs, comfort zones, resistance to change. These are the things you got to put a focus on, and that's the cultural shift that has to take place. The third piece of this is really important. If you're serious about growth, okay, throw education out the window as the most important focus. Put your focus on the cultural shifts and all the other things that we just talked about. Get some outside help. Okay, if you really want to grow your practice, get some outside help. Of course, on the little piece in terms of education on how to do the new thing. But the most important part is get some outside help so that you can help shift, or so that they can help shift the culture, right? Listen, you as the doctor, as the captain of the ship, may be a superhero, but you understand how human nature works. And if you were trying to implement a new process or a new systematic approach or a new strategy in whatever area of your practice, hopefully across all areas, but if you're trying to implement those things, you will soon run up against the resistance of the culture. Now, if you don't have somebody on the outside helping to shift that culture, here's the thing. Even if you are a superhero, you're going to get bogged down. Listen, at the end of the day, if you're the only one trying to move this massive boat in the right direction, even you at some point are going to go, you know what? It's just probably not worth it. Let me throw the towel in. You know what? Things were easier when we were back into our comfort zones. Hey, things were easier when I didn't feel like every day I'm coming in trying to fight this uphill battle. I'm constantly going against the resistance of comfort zones, beliefs, behaviors, thought processes, and all of this. I thought I was trying to implement a new process for treatment acceptance, but now it's turned into I'm kind of like fighting everybody on the team just to be thinking differently. It's too much. You know what? Let me throw in the towel. It was easier just to go back to what's comfortable. If you really want to grow your practice, education is about this much of it. The other 90% are cultural issues, and you need to put a focus on those issues and get some outside help. There's nothing wrong with that. Part of the value of somebody outside is simply the fact that they're not you. They're not into the minute-by-minute scenario, right? You guys are working closely together in proximity throughout the course of a day. Everybody knows the ins and outs of how each other's thinking. And when it comes to resistance, you know what? It's easier just to not rock the boat. Somebody from the outside is not connected in the game, playing minute by minute with you along the way. Therefore, they've got a much fresher perspective. They also have the ability to get past some of that closeness, to be able to challenge some ways of thinking that you've not experienced because you're in the game. Michael Jordan tried to be a coach, and he tried to play the game as well. I think it was the Washington Wizards when he was trying to do that. I believe that's right. Somebody will correct me if I'm not wrong. But he tried to be the coach and the player at the same time. You know what? It doesn't work. When you're in the game, you got to be focused in the game. When you're coaching, you got to be focused on the overall aspects of the game, and you can't do both by playing both sides of the coin. So if you really want to grow your practice, okay, realize that the focus is about this much on education, and the other 90% is getting past all of the legacy, circumstances, situations, comfort zones, and behaviors, focusing on the culture and getting some outside help. At the end of the day, it's about you having happier clients, better results, making more money, and enjoying the ride. If you will focus on those three things, I promise you, you will have happier clients, better results, you will make more money, and you will enjoy the ride over the long term. I'm Sean. Thanks for joining me on the Dental Profits Live podcast. I'll see you next time.